Did you know that on September 11th, 2001, there are 19 Islamic terrorists unsuspectedly boarded 4 airliners are departing the East Coast airports. They are hijacking airplanes. And why? Because they hijacked the planes and carrying out the series of coordinated attacks against the U.S. And, and why? Because the planes hit the World Trade Center and all that. This is a tribute to all those lives who lost that day and the heroic sacrifice all all who rushed to help. And Americans, but as Americans, we honor their memory by their lives for freedom, and we will never forget. Folks, because this Sunday is our 15th anniversary of 9/11. Because I'm not talking about politics and all that stuff. This is serious. And everybody knows that you should listen. Because the tyranny of 9/11 is just smoke and mirrors. Edwin Morrow says this: no one man can terrorize this whole nation unless we are all his accomplices. We walked a long, strange, and harrowed road since September 2001 began. And it literally, with the debris of our once vaunted liberties. And over the past 15 years, we have gone from a nation that took pride in being a model of a representative democracy. You guessed it. You guessed it. Democracy. To being a model of how to persuade the citizenship to march in a lockstep with a police state. And what this passage mean? I'll tell you what the passage means. The U.S. Patriot Act back in October 2001, and that has snowballed into the ratification of every vital safeguard against government outreach and corruption and abuse. This is not freedom. This is a jail cell. And it sets against the backdropping of government surveillance, military police, SWAT teams, you name it. This is what happens. Our constitutional freedoms has been steady chipped away, undermined, eroded, weighted down, and generally discarded. This is what happens when we lose our mounting with each passing day. And did you know that free speech is not the only one who knows it can't be civilized about this? Well, guess what? I got news for you. Free speech is the right to protest, the right to challenge government wrongdoing, due process, and a presumption of innocence, of self righteous self righteousness and self defense, and and accountability and transparency in government, private privacy, press, you name it, because it has happened, and all of this and more becomes the casualties in the government's war on the American people. A war that has been grown more pronounced since 9/11. Just remember, when those two towers, World Trade Center, just fell on 9/11, we, us, Americans, doesn't matter if you're black or white or colored people, whatever it is, because we, us Americans, knows that have been treated like enemy combatants and to spied on, tracked, scanned, frisked, searched, subject to all manner of intrusions, intimidated, invaded, raid, manhandled, censorship, silenced, shocked, shot at, locked up, and denied due process. May I suggest this? We allow ourselves. We allow ourselves to be distracted by terror drills, foreign wars, color-coded warnings, underwear bombers, and other carefully constructed exercise propaganda to be sleight of hand, and you know that means we failed to recognize that the true enemy to freedom was lurking among us inside. For a while. This is what you call the ABC. This is what you call the A to Z American could be the building blocks. I know the building blocks is for kids, but this is the way that happens on 9/11. For instance, A, American police state. B is for, you guessed it, our battled Bill of Rights. C is for civil assessed forfeit. What about D is for drones? To be weaponized and with laser and tasers and scanning all that at the aim of we the people. What about letter E is this? Electronical concentration camp for all citizens are suspects. Letter F is fusion centers. What about G? Do we have grenade launchers and global police? Give me a break. Here's the purpose you don't want to know by now. And you guessed it. It's going to be H, hollowed point bullets. And the government efforts to militarize, terrorize, and weaponize the agents and all that. What about the Internet of Things? It gets closer to connect, to propel us closer to the future where the government thinks to be committed a crime or whatever. Jail, J is for jail, for profit. K is for Kentucky B. King. And what about the license plate readers? and main course, no knock raids, over criminalized stations, and what about path- pathocracy and pre-crime? And the key word is this. I know the key word is this: qualified immunity. Immunity, which the officers to walk away without paying a dime for wrongdoing. It isn't. And what about the roadside? Strip searches and surveillance states and tasers and unarmed citizens shot by you know who. You guessed it, the police. And what about Viper squads? Whole body scanners. It's just like, yeah, TSA, go on an airplane or whatever it is that you call it. The X score, X key score. They are spying like the NSA or Rogers, or should I say Edwin Snowden, whoever it is. What about the UNIS? Facial recognizing software promises. It's based on this mannerism, social media, and useness. And finally, letter Z. Zero tolerance. We, which the young people are increasingly as suspects in treating yet engaging more than a little bit of childish behavior. This is the lessons that we learn that impressionable citizens that you know all that stuff. May I suggest this? The choices that you just made are straightforward. We can live the past. Dwell on what freedoms that we used. Enjoy this. Joy and this struggling helplessly in this destruction of our liberties. We can immerse ourselves in the presence of ourselves to be utterly distracted by the glut of entertainment, news, liberal media bias pressure. People buffoons are covering these stupid stories up for 9/11. What happens next? Mr. President doesn't do nothing. He didn't say anything. George W. Bush has it all down, helping people what 9/11 is. He doesn't, and that is why Mr. President Obama doesn't know anything. He care less, walking around, all that. Guys, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's time for you to wake up. The headlines are coming in because if it all fails to pay attention to or to do anything about the government, we can hang our hopes inside this future, like try to believe and live in the world of against all odds, that someone or something, whether if a politician or a movement or a religious savior, will save us from an inevitable ruin. And I don't care, because I'm not talking to anyone else. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or us conservatives, or should we say, should we say liberals or libertarian or whatever, because we have to hang out our hopes inside this future and believe it, because we're in a movement. And I don't care if you're religious like Lutheran, Catholic, Episcopalians like me, and so is Presbyterians and Baptist and others. we can start right away by instituting changes of the local level, holding our government accountable to the rule of law and reassuring the Constitution. It recognized this, that if we fail to do so instead, we try this again, start to finish. Because our current current picture will be facing the future closer to what happens on 9/11 15 years later. So ask this question: where were you on 9/11 when the world starts turning 15 years later? And give me one good reasons why. Because there's no good for nothing Islamic terrorist try to crash, try to hijack a plane, crashing those twin towers at a time like this. Think about it, because 9/11 is a time to remember the tragedies, and it happens because it doesn't get any better than this from now on. Just remember, we celebrate our 15th anniversary of 9/11 this Sunday in New York City, Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, you name it. And we will remember the sacrifices that we just made for our police and firefighting uniforms and all that. And remember our brave men and women in their uniforms who lost their loved ones forever. Because 9/11 just lived. And it lives again for our 15th anniversary of 9/11 this Sunday. As we ring our bells to listen and learn what 9/11 really means. Because I'm not speaking about a little bit of politics, just a point of view. In my perspective. Because I said so in the first place. Now and forever. And that's my story. A little bit of 9/11, 15 years later. And I'm sticking to it. Thank you. And go with God's blessings from LH Music.